Okay, hello everyone and welcome to our session called Developing Countries, Food Science in Action or Inaction. We're going to explain that in just a minute. But first I want to introduce you to our speakers. So I'm Donna Rosa. I'm going to moderate this panel. I'm the Chief Entrepreneurship Officer of EFour Enterprises. Our two presenters are from Land O'Lakes. We have Evie Severyn, who's the Senior Quality Manager and Global Markets Development for Land O'Lakes. And then we also have Charbel Abou Haidar, Country Director, Farmer to Farmer FSQ, Land O'Lakes Venture37, which is something a little bit different. So we're going to do a little bit of background on ourselves, not too long, and then we'll go into the presentation. So EFour Enterprises, my company, is a company that works with entrepreneurs in developing countries. We work only in developing countries, and we provide business support and business coaching, and we do it remotely. So that's what EFour is about. Evie, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm Evie Severyn. I've been a food safety quality professional for over 35 years, working in a variety of roles, always in food. I've been with Land O'Lakes since 2009 and had an opportunity to develop our supplier quality program for our dairy foods division. And then I've been supporting our Venture37 team, Land O'Lakes Venture37 team, as well as our Vermont Creamery team. So I've had an opportunity to participate in several farmer-to-farmer programs, as well as training HACCP around the world. Charbel?
Yeah, so my name is Charbel Abou Haidar. I'm from Lebanon, the country director of the USAID-funded farmer-to-farmer program implemented by Land O'Lakes Venture37. I have around 13 years of experience working in development program. My background, I studied agricultural engineering with my master in plant pathology, and I joined the development program and started working with a couple of organizations. And I joined Land O'Lakes since 2013, and now I'm running this program, helping our beneficiaries in Lebanon throughout the expertise, the US expertise as well. Thank you.
Okay, why don't one of you explain the difference between Land O'Lakes Inc. and Land O'Lakes Venture37?
Well, Land O'Lakes Inc. Is a cooperative. We have several different divisions, and I'll go into that a little bit later in our slides. And then Land O'Lakes Venture37 is a nonprofit 501(c)(3). And again, we'll explain that a little bit further as we go along.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'm going to present one question before we get into the slides. We have a few slides to explain to everyone what Land O'Lakes does. But I want to just go back and talk about the name of this. And the reason for this session is because, you know, in my development work, I have seen where there has been a focus on agriculture from all the donors, which is fine. We need agriculture. We need to grow the food. But we want to evolve a little bit and sort of emphasize what food processing can bring to the picture as far as development. You know, it can add a lot of things, such as, you know, food safety and added nutrition. It promotes food security. You know, you can add value and it increases incomes. So my question to you guys is, why has it been so slow for donor organizations such as USAID to discover food processing and food science, as opposed to agriculture, taking it to the next step?
Yeah, so Land O'Lakes Venture37, as you said, has long work in agriculture projects in different parts of the world. And actually, we continue to do that in order to help communities in producing crops and to feed the world. But as consumer demand has changed in some developing countries, like take, for example, Lebanon. These NGOs that are funded by different donors also followed this change and evolved in their work and assistance. And we have evolved also to work from agriculture to food processing in order to support this uprising need. But having said that, we continue to work actually in agriculture as it still represents a need in some other developing countries.
Do you see that more and more projects will incorporate food processing? Or
yes, I mean, as you say, I mean, as I said, it depends on the need, because it's always demand driven. Where there is a high place to high impact, then those NGOs and those donors will fund the projects to do it. So yeah, in the future, as the demand of food processing is increasing, as the demand for safer food that is needed in order for export and other things, I think that yeah, a lot of support will be going to there as well.
Okay, so it's basically demand driven. So we have, the only reason I ask is we have a program called Food Science for Relief and Development, and we are trying to, IFT is, and other groups trying to communicate to donor organizations that there's a place for food science, there's a place for processing, particularly in the development side, and that we can take it beyond agriculture, and there's benefits to that. Okay, all right. So let us move on. I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to turn it over to Evie for some slides and a short video on Venture37.
Great, thanks, Donna. Okay. A little bit about us. I'm just going to share a short video that we had made that tells the story of Land O'Lakes Venture37.
37. That's the percentage of the Earth's land where the farmers can grow the crops and raise the livestock to nourish our world. %. It's all we've got to make abundant, nutritious food available to feed 10 billion people by the year 2050, while sustaining the health of our soil, water and air. 37%. What will we do with it? Introducing Land O'Lakes Venture37, a global non-profit uniquely positioned to help make the most of our Earth's farmland and feed human progress. Venture37 works across continents, cultures and markets to help farmers realize their full potential. We do it powered by our connection to Land O'Lakes Inc., a multi-billion-dollar farmer-owned cooperative. Since 1921, Land O'Lakes has been unlocking the potential of dairy, livestock and crop farms and agribusiness ventures. We do it guided by our decades of experience, delivering locally led agricultural development ventures all around the world. We do it because farmers help one another, no matter where they live. Land O'Lakes Venture37.
That's an overview of Venture37. As I said, it's a 501c3. We have about 200 team members around the world, and we are affiliated with Land O'Lakes Inc., which makes us a little bit different. A little bit about Land O'Lakes Inc. and how international development. Land O'Lakes Inc. is one of the few organizations within North America that goes from farm to fork. So you can see the various touch points that we have throughout the supply chain. And this gives you a little bit better understanding of Land O'Lakes. We have 4 different areas of focus. We have our Winfield United, Purina Animal Nutrition, Dairy Foods, which is what I support, and then our Truterra division, which does sustainability solutions. So this is where Land O'Lakes Venture37 has current projects. As you can see, we've been in existence since 1981. To date, we've done 315 plus projects in 80 plus countries around the world. So these are some examples of programs. Today we're going to focus a little bit on Farmer to Farmer, the Food Safety Quality Program, which we have project in Bangladesh, Egypt, and Lebanon. As you can tell, we have several other projects going on, and again, these are just examples, but we partner with USAID, USDA, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and again, just to name a few. This is a snapshot of some of the impact that we've been able to make with our partners around the world. The key, 1,000 plus jobs have been created. 140,000 people have been directly assisted by the projects that we've been working on. So with that, Charbel's gonna tell us a little bit more about the Farmer to Farmer Food Safety Quality Program. Charbel?
Thank you, Evie. Yes, in this couple of slides, I will be speaking a little bit about the USAID-funded Farmer-to-Farmer program, Food Safety and Quality, that we are implementing in Lebanon, Egypt, and Bangladesh. So the Farmer-to-Farmer program is a global program, actually implemented by several implementers, and Land O'Lakes Venture37 is one of those implementers. We are implementing it in, as I said, in those 3 countries. The general objective of this program is to generate a sustainable and broad-based economic growth in the agriculture and agro-food sector through US expertise. And the second objective, which is equally important, is to this cultural exchange that the experts will have when they come to our countries and the developing countries and take back with them when they go back to the US. So our approach as a farmer-to-farmer food safety and quality is focused on the Global Food Safety Initiative Global Markets Program, which take the majority of our assignments, helping host organizations to increase their food safety practices following the international food safety standards. And 30% of our assistance is through enabling environment, assisting host organizations throughout the expertise from the US, and through identifying qualified volunteers that will visit our countries and work with our host organization. So as we said, our work is to assist in training small and medium growers and food processors on good agriculture practices, on manufacturing good hygienic practices, sometimes on veterinary assignments. But a lot of our assistance is focused on assisting selected businesses through the Global Food Safety Initiative's Global Markets Program in order to increase their food safety practices in their production, enabling them to be closer to export and to expand their marketing access. So in this picture, you could see one of our experts that are the Land O'Lakes Inc. experts that visited Egypt, part of the farmer-to-farmer food safety and quality programs. And as you can see, he is assisting one of the food processing companies about food safety and how to improve their food safety practices. So the farmer-to-farmer, being a global program implemented by several implementers, focus generally on horticulture, on livestock, and on food processing. Land O'Lakes Venture37 is focusing more on food safety and quality because it is important to us for several reasons. First is that it is the consumer demand for safe and high quality product has increased around the globe. And international trade for food product is being dependent now on processors that meet the global standards, which elicit the need to assist them in this regard. And it is vital from farmer to fork and across all the sector of the value chain, and present on the national agendas of the countries where we currently work in. And of course, it is fundamental to the health and the human productivity. Again, in this picture, you can see another expert visiting a bakery. This picture is in Lebanon. He is working with them on product optimization and improving the quality of their products. As you can see here, they are discussing rice cake production and teaching the lead technical person on how to improve the quality of his product. So some numbers, Land O'Lakes and Venture37 and the farmer to farmer, our history with the farmer to farmer is quite long, and we have sent around 1,400 volunteers to more than 27 countries in the world. And we are so lucky that we have our Land O'Lakes Inc. Assisting us. So they supported us as well with fielding 160 expert working at Land O'Lakes Inc. that volunteered his time throughout our program to support more than 400 host enterprise. And more focus on our current program, we are looking forward working in the 3 countries, Lebanon, Egypt, and Bangladesh, to support around 50 host enterprise in sending around 213 volunteers, focusing mainly on food safety and quality aspects in order to impact around 350,000 people. So we thought of sharing a little bit some picture about our work because, as you may know, our program is focused on the practical assistance. So our volunteer experts that visit our countries work in different topics. As you can see, one of Land O'Lakes Inc. experts visited Lebanon to inspect and improve post-harvest of potato. And she is visiting a pack house in the Bakar, inspecting the quality of our potato production, Another picture showing another expert visiting grape molasses also in Lebanon, in Mount Lebanon, assisting in food safety practices in order to improve the quality of his product. Another picture is, as we said, we work in the majority of our work in food safety and quality, but we have also some agricultural assignment because we all know that food starts from the field to the processing facility. In this regard, we have also conducted a couple of assignments, horticulture assignment, improving the quality of the produce. And in the middle, we see also an expert tackling the quality of vinegar.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think we've gotten a good sort of understanding of your work that's bringing food science to development, particularly in the food safety and quality. Very important aspect of it. We're going to talk a little bit later more about this, but there are volunteer opportunities for IFT members, and this is the link that you can go to. And if you just go to the career area of the IFT website, if you go to this link and you click volunteer globally, you will get the opportunities that are available. I should mention that I got into development because of Land O'Lakes. My very first assignment was a volunteer assignment with Land O'Lakes. I worked on a dairy farm in Umtata, South Africa, and I've been doing it ever since. So we encourage everyone to volunteer if you can. Right now there are remote volunteer opportunities from Land O'Lakes on there because of the pandemic. But go ahead and sign up, and we encourage everyone's participation. It's a great experience. I can't even tell you. Of course, my experience was in country, but it really is a good experience, and you'll be able to see, use your skills. I should also mention that the Farmer to Farmer program and Land O'Lakes volunteer opportunities are only available to U.S. citizens at this time, and this is a USAID requirement. It's nothing to do with Land O'Lakes or IFT. But
we're trying to expand that, and we're working on that as well. Okay.
So let us go to our little talk show here. Welcome back, everyone. So let me start with some questions. And we want to get into a little bit more about how food science gets implemented in development contexts. So let's start with the first question. Can you give us an example of a project that successfully implemented or utilized food science? Like, give us a success story from your coffers.
Yeah. So working in development projects like, for example, the Farmer to Farmer program has enabled us to assist several beneficiaries and assessors in responding to their need in food safety and quality. As we have several examples of successful implementation involving food science, but we could share with you a couple of examples where we have assisted a dairy processing facility that is producing ricotta cheese-like a product. We call it ashta in Lebanon. That is widely used in Arabic sweets, in fruit cocktails. So this is their main product. So they thought of introducing a new product to their company, which is ice cream, because it is highly demanded and it has good marketability, especially in the summer. So as they lacked the know-how on how to produce this ice cream, they thought first that they can go and import a ready-mix structure and use it in producing ice cream from Europe. But they soon realized that this is extremely costly and it is decreasing actually their competitiveness in the market. So we have outreached them, and throughout our program, we supported them through recruiting a U.S. industry expert that volunteered throughout our program and came to Lebanon and visited and worked with their team in order how to manufacture this ice cream using locally available materials in Lebanon. So he worked with them on introducing them to several ingredients that they weren't very familiar of, like the use of maltodextrin, the stabilizer, the emulsifier that are present in our country. And he worked with them and he managed to design actually 2 ice cream mixes that they managed to produce with the comparable quality to the one that was imported from Europe. But the beauty of it is that it was at a cheaper price and always available, which gave it a better competitivity in the market as a price and as a quality as well. So that is one of the examples. Actually, if you want also, I could share with you another example working at a main bakery in Lebanon, where they are producing several types of product, basically the Arabic pita bread that we use, and some French bread and pastries. And they had been faced by challenges regarding product optimization and in order how to manage their production step better. So throughout the development program, like our program, we have identified actually academic and industry experts that came and worked with their team on developing a traceability program in order to better manage their production. So throughout their assistance and prompt follow-up of the program, they managed to identify and install a traceability program that included all the that is designed per the HACCP workflow, and it includes all the elements of the critical control point that are needed. So they installed it, and they actually now installed the touch screens in their facility for their production staff to enter these information as they are producing. And this has now, as a result, as an impact of this assignment, now they can conduct a precise follow-up of all the production stages to make sure that the parameters and requests from customers and legislations are applied, and all the attributes related to packaging, the batch number are there, which will help the facility in case there was any issues and any recall or complaint from customers. Now they can trace it back due to this assistant and these programs and figure out the solution. So these are a couple of examples that we do, but we have several others.
Yeah, and those are very typical. You know, it doesn't take much to help them so much. Like all it takes is a little training, a little sharing of expertise, and it gives them such a huge jump in their capabilities. And the fact that you know, you help them produce a local product using local raw materials, that's something I see all the time, and it makes me nuts when particularly in parts of Africa where everything's imported, because they don't have the knowledge, they don't have the skills, they don't have the wherewithal to make it themselves. They could if somebody went in there and showed them how to do it. And you know, this is why I do what I do, because this stuff can be made locally, and we have to share what we know and you know, make them aware of the importance of quality and safety, and you know, how to develop products, and then they go from there, you know. Right. So there's lots of these success stories. Like I said, it takes so little to make such a big difference. So, but on the other side of that, there's huge challenges.
This isn't easy. You know, I've seen it myself. So let's talk about, you know, the major challenges that you have in implementing these projects, and how do you manage them? Because I know there's problems aplenty.
Sure. Yeah, and that's the reality. You know, there are definitely challenges. You know, I think the first would be the language. You know, a lot of us are volunteers are English speaking, so just the barrier, you know, the nuances of the language, the culture. You know, so we've been able to partner, you know, we have our local teams in country, you know, Bangladesh, Egypt, and Lebanon, but we also have been able to leverage our partnerships with local universities. So working both with professors and with students, and it's a huge win-win. It's an opportunity to share our knowledge with the next generation of food scientists. So that's one element of it, and it empowers the local resources. So it really is, you know, a great win, and it's a great collaboration between, you know, the academic, you know, and the private public, you know, enterprises. And then the other challenge is just getting the tools. I was in a facility last September in Lebanon, and, you know, just simple things that we take for granted here in the US, hand soap, you know, the quality of the hand soap, and just being mindful, you know, how challenging it is to get hand soap, you know, cleaning chemicals. You know, we've had challenges with getting laboratory chemicals. You know, so if you're doing titratable acidity or, you know, other tests, you need to have the right chemicals, the right purity, the right strength, etc. Simple things like thermometers. You know, you might have a critical control point in your HACCP program that requires temperature. Well, you need to make sure that you have a calibrated thermometer. So again, you know, just some of the logistics of getting those, you know, tools, you know, in the developing countries. You know, they oftentimes don't have the infrastructure. A lot of times those things are not made in country. So we've been able to leverage some of our Land O'Lakes Inc. connections, you know, with some suppliers. So trying to work through that, you know, but it is definitely a challenge. The other challenge that we've had is, you know, in some countries in the past, you know, GFSI or ISO certificates have been handed out without on-site audits, without any proof, you know, that their quality management system meets the requirements. So then trying to convince the leadership team, you know, the resources needed, the commitment needed, not just by the food safety quality R&D professional, but the entire management team. You know, that is quite a commitment. And again, making sure that they understand that commitment. The other challenge, just the reality of our world, I think we've seen that, recently, just the whole security, personal security. Land O'Lakes, we sit down with the volunteers before they go on assignment. Each country is a little bit different. So we have a chat with our security people before, they depart from the US. And then our teams, like Charbel and his team in country, once they're in country, then that's one of the first things that we do as well. We sit down, with, and chat about the security potential risk. And then we're giving, an in-country phone so that we're reachable, 24/7. And that really brings peace of mind. But those are some of the challenges that we've run into. That's just the reality of the developing worlds.
Yeah, and things, you mentioned things that we take for granted, electricity is one of them. The power goes out all the time and you're in the middle of, that could be a big problem. And something like rain, like when there's no roads and they get, in tropical areas, they get torrential rains, it washes it, it's just nothing but mud and you can't operate. You can't, everything shuts down because of rain. And we don't think of things like this. So there's lots of challenges. There's lots of challenges in training, making sure that everything is understandable. Charbel, do you have any other things to add to that?
As Evie said, basically, implementing this program for several years now, the basic challenges that, especially for new volunteers, new experts that they are leaving to come to these to our countries, and a lot of them have never traveled to this part of the world. So sometimes cultural challenges is faced. Sometimes they will be also not prepared to what you have said of bad infrastructure at some point, of things that they feel that it's the A, B, and C in their countries, and here no, they have to adapt. They have to manage from different places from the very beginning. So it's challenging, and here it's up to the personality of the expert to adapt to these challenges, and at the same time for the local team to facilitate this and prepare them as much as possible, even before they depart their countries, in order to decrease.
Yeah, when you do this work, you don't know what you're going to find. Like you go there and it's like you cannot anticipate, some of the stuff that you're going to have to deal with. So that's the challenge of it. But
it's fun. Yeah, it's fun too. It is a challenge, but it's not boring. And
exactly.
I find it.
You have to be really creative.
Yes.
Like, they don't have thermometers, so like what do you do?
I typically now I travel, I have a kit that I travel with, and I typically have a thermometer, I have Sharpies, different tools that that may not be available in country. I can't take hand soap, I can't take certain things, but you try to tap into some of the networks that so if that you're going to a country in Africa, to dial into some of those resources, so you adapt.
I don't know if you have, if this is sort of in your area or not, but have you had trouble finding decent packaging?
You mean food grade packaging?
Yeah. And packaging that's suitable for the products.
I think we've had challenges, again, we've had packaging experts that have traveled to Lebanon a couple years ago, getting the right barriers for the packaging. They were working, I think it was a cereal bar, and just having the right type of packaging for the product type. So, just because it's a plastic doesn't mean it'll work with cheese, that it'll work with cereal bars. Those products have different barrier, requirements. So it is, but right now, I guess to prioritize, getting quality ingredients, quality, supplies, packaging is lower on the list. But we had a situation in Lebanon, just salt. And there's different types of salt, and I forget, it was, I couldn't read the label, it wasn't in the native language either. And so is it road salt or is it food grade salt? So just trying to understand, the source of those ingredients Is it appropriate for a food product? And again, we take that for granted, all those different nuances.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the best use of food science in development context. In other words, under what conditions is the application of food science most useful or most successful? Are there certain situations where it just lends itself better to the application of food science and processing?
Yeah, so as we work on food safety and the quality, food science is essential in the majority of our assignments in improving the safety of the product, and sometimes in improving the facility in order to produce a safer product or a higher quality product. So food science in our current objective is highly needed. And so I can mention several examples that we are working on. And one of them, as I already mentioned, in making a new product development for some host organization, like I mentioned before, in that we used food science and food technology in identifying the needs in order to produce, like for example, the ice cream that we mentioned above. Or sometimes also training beneficiaries on the use of ingredients which can solve issues related to shelf life in order to improve the texture maybe of their produce. And here food science is also essential and highly needed. And being a development program, our role is when working with those processors is to educate them, is to train them on the best processing techniques, on the ingredients that they can use and the ingredients interaction in food quality, and how to use food additives, for example, in order to improve the quality of their product. Like take, for example, the usage of like Arabic gums as a stabilizer, or vitamin E to decrease the oxidation. And as an example, we have a couple of stories, but one of them is while we were working with a cracker company that are producing crackers with their aim to ship outside Lebanon. And one of the issues that they were facing is oxidation. Their product, when it's been put on the shelf for a long period of time, it oxidizes, and it doesn't work, and it decreases the quality. So throughout our industrial expert that visited them, they advised, they reviewed the recipe and see how he's producing his crackers, and advised of the use of vitamin E, for example, which he didn't know about. And now his product is much better with a higher quality, with a chance to export at some point, of course, after he fulfill all the food safety certificates that will follow. Another example on using food science is when we were working with a processing facility actually producing grape syrup. So in the US, you have, of course, you are all familiar with the maple syrup, but in Lebanon, we do not have maple trees. So we are known about our grape production, especially in the Bekaa, where between parentheses we make great wine and arak. So using this grape production, this processor thought of why not to produce grape syrup, and to be used similarly as you would use the maple syrup. And he turned to be producing a very good product with a great packaging and everything. But when testing it on the shelf for like a period of time, he started seeing that there are some sedimentation that is occurring in his product, even though he did all what he could in terms of filtration, checking the temperature of the production, everything that he could think of. He wasn't sure why his product, which are based on grapes, is sedimenting after a while. And throughout an expert, and actually Evie was one of those experts who visited this grower for food safety assignment, but for this technical also challenge that he was facing, the expert came and visited him and saw the processing technique, how he's using, how he's producing this, and found out after some tests that tartaric acid, for example, could be highly the reason of this issue. And now it's been resolved in order to improve the quality, which again, now he has more chances to get premium prices when selling this product. So this is basically what the development is, and how we can use food science in making our assignment impactful.
Yeah. I guess there's a certain level of development that the country or the situation has to be. So it's if they're very poor, very rural, they don't have the means to process food, you know, and I would guess that it's more of an agricultural situation where you're helping them. But then when they get, and I don't know where that line is, but get them to the point where they're actually processing food, then you would be able to implement some of this stuff. I don't know, do you deal in those very poor situations, you know,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think we also, you know, the informal markets, that's a reality of a lot of the countries.
Yeah.
You know, and I think a lot of consumers still, you know, are going to the market every day, you know, and that's why we're still very much involved in agricultural development projects.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the reality. And I think Lebanon is more, you know, there's more consumer demand in Lebanon.
Yeah.
So we have more food processing projects in Lebanon than we do in Bangladesh or Egypt. But as Charbel said earlier, it's really about the consumer demand. And then the opportunity, if there is an opportunity to export products, you know, to Europe or, you know, elsewhere in the, you know, in the world. So it's very case dependent.
Yeah, and you know, people think of, you know, there's processing and there's processing, and many of the situations that I've been in, you know, when I say processing, I'm talking about milling grain into flour.
Yes.
And doing that so that it's not a manual operation anymore. I mean, it could be that simple. You know, We're not talking about, you know, frozen dinners or, you know, or whatever. We're talking about drying or, you know, just basic forms of processing that will help extend the shelf life of the food, perhaps into the you know, the hungry season or the lean season.
Right.
So it doesn't have to, you know, maybe it's just canning, or maybe it's just making a beverage out of the local fruits and vegetables or so forth. So, you know, I think there's a place for processing in many contexts, you know, unless it's at the very, very basic base of the pyramid type of situation. So there's always a way to help, you know, post-harvest processing, you know, all the tomatoes that get, you know, that come ripe and then they go bad in the field because they don't have a way to can them or process them in any way, you know, that kind of situation. Okay. Let's talk about what doesn't work well in these development contexts. Can you give us an example of something that just you tried, but it didn't work?
Well, I think we have to be mindful, you know, there's different contexts. You have the global context, and then you also have the local context, you know, and I think what we've come to realize is one size does not fit all. So, you know, the volunteer, and this is where we really, you know, with farmer to farmer, you know, the volunteer may be expert, and I've been in this situation as well. You may think you know something, you're coming from, you know, a manufacturing background, you're working in a huge facility that has lots of different resources, etc. And then, you know, you really need to be mindful and, you know, deeply listen to the host and listen to what the needs are. What we may think are the needs may not very well be the needs. So you really have to carefully listen. You know, is it scalable? You know, so something, you might have this grand idea of what to do, but is it feasible for the host? You know, we're very mindful of cost. You know, is it scalable? Is it sustainable? Is it practical? You know, so if you get a piece of equipment that no one in country knows how to maintain, that's not really, you know, realistic.
Yes,
so,
and I've seen that.
Yes, it happens. I mean, we see that, you know, a lot. I've worked on water projects in the past, you know, and they put this beautiful pump in, but nobody in country knows how, you know, to use it. So again, you need to adapt to each, you know, situation. farmer to farmer works with the small, medium-sized companies, so they don't have unlimited resources. They would love to be able, to get sophisticated equipment, but that's not the reality. So again, being very mindful of where the host is, and just that one size does not fit all.
Yeah. Charbel, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say that the development has its own limitation as well. I mean, as Evie was saying, sometimes you are faced by several challenges. For example, you work with the food processors, you try to train them as much as possible to increase their quality, to increase the safety in order to reach export. But at the same time, as a program, you cannot guarantee markets, for example. You cannot guarantee that their produce will be sold if they fulfill the market requirements. So sometimes you are also faced by different challenges. Sometimes it is related to, and most of them, it's something that you can't do anything about it, because that could be, as you said, related to infrastructure sometimes, like working in countries where they don't have sustainable electricity, or working in countries with financial situations that is devastating, that will prohibit this producer or processor that you are putting so much effort to work with and for him to progress. But at the same time, if he doesn't have the mean, then this will limit his also work in order to invest in his company. So these are one of the things that it is really challenging when working with development, but we would have to do our best to serve them.
You find a way around this stuff. I remember having to go out in the field for a day, and having to take 2 laptops with me because there was no way I was going to be able to recharge the thing, and I had to take data down. And so I learned to bring 2 computers. You just learn to adapt, and there's just, I work on the business side, and often I'm dealing with limited literacy and numeracy skills, and I'm trying to figure. They never know what's coming in and what's going out as far as the money. They don't know if they're making money. And you have to bring it down to a very basic level that they understand. They weren't educated, like they don't know marketing. You know what I mean? You have to make it very simple. And that's also a big challenge too, is like things that we just know, we think everybody else knows, and they don't know it, so you have to, you have to do that. One of the things, now I was a volunteer a long time ago, but how do you ensure that there's continuity? You're sending expert after expert in, let's say a dairy producer or something, and you're sending one after the other. So how do you ensure that there's continuity there?
Yeah, it is. More important than sending expert is to make sure that this host that you are working with, that you are investing a lot of money, because remember that sending an expert maybe for the host is free, but for us as a program, it is costing us a lot of donors. So here it is up to the local team in order how to choose the right person to work with, to be worth investing the effort and if we see that there is a chance for him to grow, he is serious, he is willing to adapt to these changes, and he has potential to grow. So, and in order to make sure after sending volunteers and following up with them, we believe first in sending volunteers to the same hosts in different topics that would fulfill the whole picture, in order to say that throughout assistance we move them from a place to another. But what show us is the follow-up of the field team to make sure that they are applying the recommendation, that they are moving forward in order to invest more in working with them.
Yeah. Can you give us a little insight as to how you vet the companies that you're going to send volunteers to? How do you do that?
Yeah, so as our program is basically, it has always been a demand-driven program. So it responds to a need. And as we see, there is a high need in food processing in Lebanon, because processors are looking to export because they have now more profit in this matter. So we are working in this regard, and we are focusing our effort. And how we do it is that in the start of this program, we have conducted a need assessment in order to see what are the needs in the country, what topics that we can work on, just to identify our entry points and to have our program focusing on really needs, not just haphazardly sending volunteers. Yeah. So we would do this need assessment. We would visit the host organization after selecting them throughout the selection criteria. We would assess the host. We use the Global Food Safety Initiative's Global Markets Program checklist to assess for food safety challenges. And based on that, we write scope of work and send it for recruitment in order to find the right experts to support them.
Okay. Okay, because that's important. And I know how much time and money is spent on that, and you don't want to waste it. You want to help an organization, a company that's going to benefit from it and that's going to produce and create jobs and prosperity. So, yeah. Sort of getting down to the end, but do you have any unique stories or special experiences that maybe would entertain us?
I think Charbel has a great story. I'll let him go first.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was blessed to be to choose my career in development world, because to me it is impactful, and it is really rewarding to see these people progress and benefit. Several stories, I think, throughout my experience. Like one of the classical questions that sometimes we hear, and maybe Donna, I'm sure you have heard it since you volunteer throughout our program, is why do you do this? So what
Yes.
is in it for you? I mean, how come you're coming to help me for free? What's the catch?
That's what I had in South Africa. My very first one, the guy asked me, why are you doing exactly? So.
So I mean, yeah, and then you had explained that, it's volunteering development to make you progress, and they really appreciate that. They highly appreciate it. And actually, as I said before, I mean, the program objective, yes, it's technical assistance in improving their lives, but it's also cultural. So we have several stories of volunteers that came to Lebanon for the first time and experienced the culture, been invited to the host for dinners. But more than that, actually, one of them, it's funny that they invited him to make the Lebanese dishes, the Lebanese meze, and he was so proud of himself making the tabbouleh and all of that. And he went back to the US and did it for his friend and shared it and sent pictures to his host. So it was amazing. It's part of the culture exchange. Actually, another funny one is that one of the volunteers got invited to a Lebanese wedding, for example, and it was for him it was weird at the beginning. See, I mean, didn't know how to react.
Yeah,
and then he found in the wedding, and he felt part of the family, like dancing, enjoying the dinner, enjoying the happiness, and he took it back to the US to share with his community. This is the beauty of these programs, and in order to take back with you this unique experiences and challenges that sometimes you make, but it will be unforgettable, which makes our program unique, I say.
Yep. And I would, I had a similar experience, my first trip to Bangladesh, so for me, it was my first trip, sensory overload. I'd never been to that part of the world before. Yeah. And so, lots of things coming at me, but we were at a honey facility. It was very remote. And you forget that we're the novelty, in country, it's rare for them to see, a white woman, wearing pants, so I had children flocking, as we were, walking around the factory, and we're inside the, the GMP, the good manufacturing zone. And there's this little child looking at me, without a hairnet, and all of that. So, it is very much a cultural exchange, the food, just the whole experience, and then we share that. But I think it's twofold. I think they share it as well, because that child had probably never seen anyone like me in their life except on TV, but then you see funny things. I was teaching a class. This wasn't a farmer to farmer program, but this was another program down in Jamaica. And I was teaching a class and a goat walks in, so you know, you just have to be prepared for the unexpected. You know, chickens are walking, you know, so that's just the reality, you know, so you just have to laugh and, you know, it is what it is and just kind of adapt.
You know, it's funny, I'm laughing because I've had all of those experiences that you both mentioned.
Yes.
You know, I was invited, I was in Russia and I was invited to a wedding there and I didn't know it, but Russian weddings last from Friday night till Sunday night.
Okay.
The whole weekend. And then we were like, you know, and they're drinking and whatever. And it, you know, it was such a special thing. I'll never forget it. You know, it was like it went on and on and on. And in Haiti, I also was conducting training. And there's chickens going by and monkeys and like all these animals, you know.
Yeah.
It was like a far cry from the corporate, you know, situation. There was a bird there that was, you know, next to me, and it's such rich experiences. And I always say that aid workers have so many stories. Like when they start talking, I mean, you can just go on and on about the stuff that happens, and that's what makes it, you know, on top of the fact that you're helping somebody. When you were mentioning, Charbel, about the volunteering, that was my experience. And the farmer I was working with kept asking me, why are you doing this? And no matter what I could tell him, he didn't understand. You know, I'm like, I'm just, you know, I've been fortunate. I've accumulated a lot of experience and I just want to share what I know. And, you know, it just, you know, it just didn't get through. But yeah, the value is in all these special things that happen that I have, you know, in pictures and whatever. So before we wrap up, did you have anything else that you wanted to say about the Farmer to Farmer program? You explained a little bit about the vetting of the projects, but do you want to say anything about the volunteers and how you prepare them for it? You touched on it, but I didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to add.
Yep. So as Charbel said, our local teams put together a scope of work, and they partner, you know, they do a gap assessment with the host, and they partner, you know, to make sure that the needs are objectively identified. And then that comes to our corporate office here in Minnesota, and we have a volunteer coordinator. And so we post to a variety of, you know, websites, like IFT is one. You know, we want to make sure that we get the right volunteer for, you know, the scope, you know, of work that needs to be done. You know, so we want to match. We're very fortunate. We've been able to tap into a lot of our colleagues at Land O'Lakes Inc. You know, we've had a variety of R&D people, processing engineers. One of our processing engineers visited a dairy in Bangladesh, and he was originally from Bangladesh. So it was a great fit because he knew the language, he knew the culture. So it was a huge opportunity, you know, for him. And then he took one of our food safety quality professionals who had never traveled to that part of the world with him. So the two of them were able to partner, you know, and just help that particular dairy, you know, the synergies kind of move along. So again, looking for the right volunteer. We do prepare them quite a lot. We have, you know, a meeting with the host and the volunteer and the local team ahead of time so that there's clear understanding of expectations. You know, so again, I think, you know, again, trying to make sure that there's success in country and then giving them the reality, you know, because, you know, it is, as you know, a little bit different. So each assignment's a little bit different. And I know when we were in Lebanon last fall, you just have to adapt. You think you're going, you know, to work on one project, and then when you get there, there's a different need.
That's another thing. That's another point. Like you think you're going to do one thing, and then there's all this other stuff comes up, and you have to do that. Yeah, exactly.
So you just adapt. Yeah,
you do. You just go with the flow. You know, you're in somebody else's country. You help them where you can. And I remember in my first assignment, I had asked to speak with somebody who had done this before, and the volunteer coordinator put me in touch with someone. I was able to call him and say, you know, what about this? What about that? And that put me really at ease because it was the first time I had ever done anything like that. And, you know, and she did that for me. And I felt a lot better about doing it, especially the first time after you've done it a few times.
Right.
you know, you have so many questions about every little detail, and
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
and I felt very well prepared. You know, you sent, you know, information about the country and what to do and what the cultural things, and yeah. So,
Yeah. So it's very much a collaboration. You know, the volunteer has the support of our local teams. You know, so again, we want the volunteer to have a great experience, so they'll tell their friends. And we have a lot of returning volunteers. You know,
Yeah.
right now we have, you know, with COVID-19, we're doing a lot of remote assignment. So a lot of the volunteers that have had an opportunity, you know, to be in country, but we're writing manuals. We have a volunteer working on a pest control manual, you know, a GMP manual. Incident management, we have a webinar next week. You know, so again, making sure that the volunteers have great experiences so that, you know, they want to do it again and share with their, you know, pass on, you know, to their friends, etc. It's really very rewarding and a lot of fun. And it's very much a collaboration.
I wrote an article, I remember, on my experience there, and on several others as well, and just to get the word out. So it is very, very rewarding, and you know, I certainly encourage it. I was going to ask you about what the virtual assignments were, so you already answered that. So you know, what was the nature of those? So I guess that'll continue on for a little while. The remote, yeah.
I think so. Yeah, just
it's
at
too
this
bad
point in
because
time. Yeah.
Yeah, the in-country experience is like nothing else. But you know, if you can do it remotely, get some experience and help somebody, you know. That's what I do. I do business coaching remotely. So
right, and you can have nutrition labeling people. You know, they can do that remote. You know, so there's certain things that actually work out okay remote. It's hard to do, you know, processing improvements, that type of thing. But you know, we're doing what we can again to keep the momentum with the host, and it's an opportunity, you know, to continue that learning.
Yeah. Yeah, so there is a lot more that can be done remotely than you think, you know, once you sit down and do it. And I think it's a great opportunity for people who not only they can't travel, but they can't take off, you know, weeks from their jobs.
Right.
So it's a good opportunity that way. Okay, I guess we're going to wrap up. Do you have any last comments before we end?
I think that's pretty well it.
Okay. Okay, I just want to mention to everyone that we are willing and able, and would love to do a follow-up Q&A since we couldn't do it on the recording. So we'd like to if you're interested in having a Q&A with us, asking questions either about the Land O'Lakes Farmer to Farmer program or volunteering or anything about you know, implementing food science in developing contexts, we would love to answer your questions. So we're going to make ourselves available July 20th, that's the Monday after IFT, 10 a.m. Eastern time, but we will only do it if there's people who are interested. So what you'll do, so I will put the Zoom link into the comments section, and we'll need you to tell us if you're interested in it, and if we see, you know, more than a few people that want to have this, we will hold it and we will let you know. So please, you know, get a hold of us. Evie, do you want to put your contact information up there?
Sure. I'm trying. Yeah, the technology. There you go. Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, great. So again, if you want to contact Charbel or myself via email, there's our email contact. And as Donna said, you know, we'll be reachable, and then hopefully we can see if there's additional interest for a future Zoom call.
Okay, and if anyone wants to get a hold of me, you can certainly do so, you know, through IFT, or you can go to my website, or just email me, donna@donnaamrosa.com. So there's lots of ways to get a hold of me. I'm certainly all around IFT. So I want to thank you both for joining me. This has been fun. I always love the opportunity to talk and to rant about the use of food science in development. So thank you both.
You're welcome.
And I will end it here.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.